A sports car clips a curb at 80 miles per hour and shatters a fire hydrant. Freeze it right there. In a standard game engine, this explosion is an ephemeral trick. The data required to animate these droplets is often purged the moment you look away, to save processing cycles for the next street corner. Rockstar's Rage 9 engine replaces this reliance on pre-recorded sequences with a system that prioritizes active, real-time simulation across every layer of the world. To see the scale of this change, we have to peel back the layers of this single frozen millisecond to see how the engine calculates the laws of physics. For years, developers were tethered to the limits of hardware, like the PlayStation 3. Low memory and limited CPU bandwidth meant the world had to be built on if-then state machines that could only track a few dozen active characters at once. If a car struck a pedestrian in those older titles, the engine simply pulled an unchangeable animation file from the disk. The character would tumble the same way every time, regardless of the speed or the angle of the bumper. Bypassing these old bottlenecks requires moving the heavy lifting of physics and biomechanics into a dedicated, real-time simulation loop. Let's unfreeze the scene by a fraction of a second. Rage 9 calculates the water from this hydrant as a node-based volume. It isn't a flat texture, it is a physical entity that recognizes solid geometric boundaries and flows around them. This technology acts as a digital nervous system for everyone in the city. The pedestrian isn't playing a reaction, they are physically feeling the impact. The engine is currently calculating the character's center of mass and velocity vectors. It triggers virtual muscles to fire in a specific sequence to try and stay upright. Because skeletal physics drive the movement, the result is a vast variety of physical reactions that shift with every degree of force and angle. Now look at the car's headlights hitting the wet asphalt. This is the result of physically based rendering. Light doesn't just illuminate a surface in this engine, it interacts with it. Rage 9 calculates how these rays scatter based on the specific roughness and metalness of the materials, following actual optical laws. This lighting logic extends to the air itself. The engine maps the world into 3D voxel grids, simulating how light is caught and scattered by volumetric fog and moisture in the atmosphere. This means lighting in Vice City is a mathematical recreation of real-world optics, grounding the player in a consistent physical space. Even the crowd's reaction to this crash has evolved. We're no longer seeing simple pathfinding that triggers when you get close. The engine assigns unique personality parameters to every individual. If we look at these sliders, a cautious driver will respond to this accident with hesitation, while a high-aggression NPC might attempt a dangerous maneuver to bypass the wreckage. These characters use hierarchical course graphs to read the environment. They don't just stop, they actively recalculate the traffic and pedestrian flow around the scene in real time. These agents function as a reactive ecosystem, where their behaviors are driven by their internal traits and the immediate stimulus of the world around them. To track tens of thousands of these complex entities at once, the engine has to overcome the limits of local hardware. Rockstar uses server-side architecture and procedural generation to offload the most taxing AI and memory calculations, keeping the simulation running even when it's miles away from the player. This massive scale enables persistent world states. If you cause enough damage to a neighborhood shop in this crash, the shopkeeper will retain that memory, changing how they interact with you weeks later. The ability to track these consequences turns the city into a persistent space, where the state of the world is tied to the player's history. By layering biomechanical physics, complex optical math, and advanced neurologic, Rockstar is creating a digital space that follows its own consistent laws. Every millisecond is a calculated effort to convince the human brain that the environment on the other side of the glass is actually alive.